It's 6 o'clock. We'll start the meeting. Welcome to East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting of today, the 2nd of May 2023. East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meetings via webcasting. These recordings are available for viewing by the public. During the meeting, any members of the public who are addressing the Council will have their image and the comments recorded. No other person has the right to record Council meetings unless approval has been granted by the Chair. The Chair is the Mayor, and that's me tonight. In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are able to attend council meetings electronically or in person, and the meetings will be open to the public via live streaming. Members of the public are invited to view live stream council meetings by following the link on the council's website or Facebook page. If we tonight encounter technical difficulties with live streaming during this meeting, we will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If technical issues can't be resolved, the meeting may be postponed to a later time or date. East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai, Kurnai, Monero and Bidawal peoples as the traditional custodians of this lands and waters that encompass East Gippsland Shire and their enduring relationship with country. The traditional custodians have cared and nurtured East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council value their living culture and practices and their right to self-determination. Council pays respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders, past, present and future. I note tonight our apologies are Councillors White and Van Diggle, CEO, Acting CEO. That's correct, I think?
That's correct, Mayor.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, councillors, officers, a member's attendance can only be recorded as present at the council meeting when the member can confirm they meet all of these criteria. They can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard to speak. So I'll now confirm with Councillor Buckley that they can see, hear and be heard by them and can see, hear and be heard by us, and note the assurance that the location they are participating from is secure to ensure confidential deliberations remain confidential. Councillor Buckley, good evening. Can you see and hear us?
Good evening, Mayor. Yes, I can.
Can you confirm the location you're participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Indeed it is.
Great, thank you for that. Just moving on to item 1.3, councillors and members. So the declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations from councillors or officers? Declarations of conflict of interest? Thanks, Ms Weigel.
I'm sorry, I was distracted. Thank you, Mayor. Yep. I've got a conflict of interest for the last matter, the planning matter, as I live in the same vicinity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just note that when the item comes up and do what you need to do. Item 1.4 is a confirmation of minutes. So let me just navigate my way down here. Excuse me. The minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday the 11th of April will be confirmed. Councillor Stowe. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Crook. Councillor Stowe, do you want to speak to the motion? To the
yes,
matter?
I'd like to, Mayor. I normally wouldn't do this for a confirmation. However, I'd like to move that the minutes of the council meeting held the Tuesday the 11th of April be confirmed with the following administrative amendment to the resolution item 5.2.6 Con 2023 1539. I hope you all got that.
Yep.
Supply and delivery of granular pavement materials. The resolution 3G to be amended from Gippsland Steel Supplies ATF the Bairnsdale Quarries Trust to Bairnsdale Quarries Proprietary Limited ATF the Bairnsdale Quarries Trust.
We'll just see that on the screen and make sure that that resolution alteration is as you are requiring, and check that the seconder is comfortable with that alteration amendment as well. Councillor Crook, you seconded that. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I confirm that's correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to the matter any further?
No, thank you very much.
Would like to speak to the matter? Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? And that is that the confirmation of the minutes with that alteration. I'll put to the motion of the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Next meeting, councillors, we haven't finished this one, but we're moving on to the next one, will be Tuesday the 23rd of May, right here in the Corporate Centre, 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale at 6 p.m. CEO, do we have any requests for leave of absence?
None, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, we're on to item 1.7, and I would like to acknowledge 3 young leaders who are with us tonight. Harper Watts from St Mary's Primary School, Charlotte Fincher from Lucknow Primary School, and Margaret Villa from St Mary's as well. These 3 young leaders are participating in the Rotary Junior Leaders Program. Is that what it's called? The Rotary Junior Award Program. Mum, is that right? Junior Rotary Award Program. Community Award Program. I'm sorry I stumbled over that, but irrespective of the title, this is a really important program for young people to participate in, and one of their requirements is to attend a community event such as a Shire Council meeting. And we know that these are really thrilling events, young leaders. So I know that you might come to another one day, irrespective of doing your Leadership Award, but I just congratulate you on behalf of the Council for participating in that award. And the world needs great young leaders, and I hope that you are on a journey to leadership through starting with this program. Round of applause, and I'll just issue them with a little badge. And well done Rotary International for supporting those programs too. It's really important, and for parents who support their children in those programs. Now we're on to item 1.7.1, which is petitions. And 1.7.1.1 is a petition to cease construction of a fence at Raymond Island. And Mr. Ryan Brown is here. Is that correct? Hello, Ryan. How are you? Yeah, great. Welcome to the podium, and thanks for being here tonight. I think I'll just hit the button, it'll go red or... There we are, now you're right. Feel free to adjust it to where it's comfortable for you too, so that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to respond to this petition. I'm relatively new to Raymond Island, and look, I don't particularly want to get involved in the politics of the island, but I did want to come here today because what has transpired is wrong, is really wrong. I became aware of this issue after reading a Raymond Island Community Association meeting minutes from the 2nd of March, where a Riker representative on a project control group controlled by the Shire for the Ferry Park and Koala Trail reported that he would be given a plan of a boardwalk fencing project, however, was not allowed to discuss it with anyone. After leaving several phone messages with the Shire and email inquiries in March seeking additional information, which still have gone unanswered and phone calls have gone unreturned, I submitted a Freedom of Information request seeking documentation from the project control group, what consultation had been done and who was a project lead. Because at this point in time, I'm completely confused. At the Raymond Island Landcare meeting on Thursday the 13th of April, the President of the Landcare stated that the fence project on 4th Avenue is an East Gippsland Shire Council project in conjunction with the Koala Island Foundation, not a Landcare project. The President of Raymond Island Landcare continued to say that the fence is not their preference and openly criticise East Gippsland Shire Council about the lack of information and community consultation about this project. And I'll quote the Chair. East Gippsland Shire Council needs to take responsibility for greater consultation with the community. East Gippsland Shire should provide more information and education to Raymond Island residents. And I continue to quote her. The rights to manage the proposed fence have already been given to the Koala Island Foundation. Another quote, the project has already been approved and awaiting for a fencing contractor. No consultation. In a letter dated the 12th of April, approved by the General Manager of Assets and Environment, you have stated that the fencing project is not a Shire project, rather a Raymond Island Care project in partnership with the Koala Island Foundation. The President of the Raymond Island Sustainability Committee has stated that the Council needs to consult more on this project. The President of the Raymond Island Community Association, along with 50 other residents, has signed a petition to stop this project and engage in a meaningful and transparent way. At first glance, some may say that consultation may have done via Landcare's membership or their newsletter, or by bearing a document on your website. However, this is lazy and is not best practice. Nor is it consistent with the Shire's requirements under the Local Government Act, nor is it consistent with your own community engagement plan. So what do we have? We have an East Gippsland Shire Council-led project control group that is clearly dysfunctional, with members of the committee contradicting the General Manager of Assets and the Environment, community associations saying they're being actively excluded, members of the PCG group openly asking for greater consultation. However, it seems that we have landed on granting land rights and engaging fencing contractors to appease one or two self-appointed influencers on the island who are going to dictate to the rest of us how we're going to live. And the 50 people who have signed this petition are livid. It goes without saying that everyone on the island should have a shared commitment to our environment. And we should protect our island. Yes, grass has been mowed, and some may say that has degraded the environment. But this can be stopped through community engagement, community education, which has not taken place. In actual fact, the council has maintained and mowed this land in recent times and continues to mow grass less than 100 metres away. So yes, there is general confusion and additional community education is required. The installation of a fence should be the last option. Council should explore all other options, including working with the community, which has not been done. Thank you.
Good timing. Thanks, Ryan. So we are on this item, and I'll go to the Acting General Manager, Business Excellence.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Councillors, before you is a petition received on the 11th of April 2023, submitted by Mr Ryan Brown, seeking council to cease construction of a fence on Raymond Island until residents have been further engaged. The petition states, we, the undersigned, hereby petition East Gippsland Shire Council. East Gippsland Shire Council has approved or are in the process of approving the construction of a fence along 4th Avenue, Raymond Island. There has been no consultation with residents directly affected by this construction. We request all construction and decision-making stopped until the East Gippsland Shire Council engages residents in a meaningful, respectful and transparent way. The officer recommendation is detailed on page 9 of your agenda, councillors, and the report is presented for your consideration.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Crook.
We've heard tonight that there's been no efforts made by the parties to consult with the residents. Is that the understanding of the staff?
I'm happy to take this.
Sure, I don't want to venture too far off track because this is about receiving a petition rather than discussing the actual ins and outs of the project that's taking place. But that's a fair question. Are you happy to answer that?
So the role we have taken is as land manager and provided land manager consent to a third party. We understood that there had been consultation, but we're investigating that again, and we will bring back a further report on this matter to the next council meeting which will detail our investigations around that consultation. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just one question also, if I may. During the period that you bring back the report, will work cease?
Sorry, Councillor Stowe. Could you ask that again?
Yeah, sure. During the period from now until when you bring back the report, shall the work cease?
The works will cease.
Thank you.
That's confirmed? Yep, happy with that. Any further questions, councillors? Okay, thanks, councillors. There is a recommendation. Do we have a motion? Happy to move it. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Stowe, want to speak to the motion? Councillor Allen?
No, I think that Ryan has spoken pretty well to it, so,
Sure, fine.
and thank you for your words.
Councillor Stowe?
Well, just I think we need to do a little bit more investigation and also a little bit more consultation before we make any other moves to erect a fence. So I'll be happy to second the motion on that basis.
Councillors, the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Thanks, councillors. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Ryan. Thanks, councillors. Item 1.7.2, I don't think we have any questions of Council Acting CEO, do we, tonight? No?
None.
Public submissions? Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, guests. Public submissions, items for noting, notices of motion, deferred business? Nil. Councillor and delegate reports. Councillors, we're excited and keen to hear what you've been up to. Are you happy to lead off, Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor. I only got a couple of things that I wanted to mention. One was Anzac Day at Lakes Entrance.
Oh, yeah.
The dawn service was attended by well over 300 people, and it was rather a poignant service because it was opened and closed by a lone piper, which just gave it an absolutely special feel in the half light of the morning. And the 11 a.m. service saw even bigger crowds, some estimates of over 1,000 in attendance. So I just want to pass on my thanks to Jeff Turner and everyone at the Lakes Entrance RSL for the way that the ceremonies were conducted in a really respectful and solemn way. And on the subject of service, I happened to meet Jenny De Freitas, a member of Lakes Entrance Landcare group going about her task of removing rubbish around Bullock Island last Thursday. So I just want to say well done, Jenny, to the dedication that you show in going around and making sure that that island is clean and presentable. And on the very same day, I ran into Terry Ryan, who is a common figure down on the esplanade at Lakes Entrance over a long, long time, also removing rubbish. But he's taken his service to a whole new level. He's had a few health issues of late, and here he was last Thursday on a walking frame, still going down the esplanade, cleaning up paper and rubbish on the street. So I just wanted to acknowledge both Jenny and Terry and say thank you on behalf of the community who really appreciates their service.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Stowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm sure everyone's going to speak about Anzac Day today, and I'm going to be one of them. I'm going to join you all. There was a moving ceremony in Bairnsdale. Again, like Lakes Entrance, a very good crowd there. I might say that Alan Pappen from the RSL spoke very highly of council, and particularly of one staff member. Now, I believe that staff member was Mitch Beck, and thanked the council very much for the work that had been done
Councillor Stowe, thank you. Councillor Crook.
Thank you. I'm now 1 week clear of having COVID, which took me out for a little while, so apologies for my husky voice. So unfortunately, I missed the Anzac Day ceremonies and several other council events recently. But I did make it to the National Timber Councils Association and the Timber Towns meeting last week and spoke to the diversity of forest uses being planned for our region into the future. So I really look forward to presenting our forest and timber use policy to the committee shortly, seeking their assistance in our advocacy for the outcomes under that policy. But before I got COVID now some weeks ago, I actually attended the Australian Coastal Council's conference, which saw councillors, council staff, academics and subject matter experts from around the nation get together to discuss the challenges of managing coastal areas, and in particular coastal hazards, floods, coastal erosion and the impact of extreme weather events. I'll submit my delegates' report, which will provide lots more details on the issues addressed, but I'll just give one example now that I found very informative. And that was a presentation by the Insurance Council of Australia by a woman called Alex Pearce, who's the Senior Manager for Climate Action and Resilience for the Australian Insurance Industry Council. And it was about insurance's affordability and availability under a changing climate. As many would know, the incidences of extreme weather events continue to increase, and there were some fairly sobering statistics given. One example is that since 2020 Black Summer fires, there have been 12 declared insurance catastrophes and 2 declared significant events in Australia, resulting in more than $13 billion in insurance claims. Now, the cost of rebuilding are often now more than the insurance cover that people have. So taking action to address extreme weather risks at a property level suddenly becomes really important, because it allows insurers more opportunity to offer affordable cover. Communities and individuals often don't know what measures can be taken to address risks, buffer impacts and increase insurance affordability. However, there are some excellent examples of the work that our council can do following the work of other councils. One in particular example I'd like to bring people's attention to is the work by the Alexandrina Council in South Australia. They produced a report titled "Where We Build, What We Build" that really demonstrates how to apply a repeatable methodology for assessing the different types of homes in a region and identifying what they call climate archetypes or standard home designs, and the resilience of those homes to different climate hazards, and really undertaking an economic analysis to determine the costs and benefits of new builds or retrofitting homes with climate-ready home specifications. So in simple terms, the report was basically an audit of the existing housing stock, which broke houses down into different decades of when they were built and how they were built, looking at their resilience to extreme weather events and what different types of houses what we can do with different types of houses to ward off these impacts. Actions which, when completed, demonstrate to insurance companies that individuals understand the risks and have acted accordingly, putting downward pressure on insurance premiums and reducing cost of living pressures. This is the kind of thing that we can do to address these concerns locally, and I look forward to sharing the results and some other information from that conference, and I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks for the report, Councillor Crook. Councillor Buckley. Welcome back. You've been in and out of connection.
Yeah, look, I apologise. My mouse, I've had some troubles with it today, and it decided to run away and not work. So it's all fixed now. Nothing that a couple of batteries couldn't deal with. So apologies. Look, I have been out in the community at large. It was a terrific day at the field days, and spoke extensively with Vic Forests and also with Gippsland Farm Forestry, which I found very important. And there were a lot of people that I spoke with in community and stallholders. It was an upbeat place to go, and confidence in the economy. And even though that might be flying in the face of what we're facing at the moment, I think it was a very good event, and council had a very big presence there, and it was nice to see lots of information being shared. I also went to the Omeo Streetscapes community meeting, so that was held in Omeo, and community were very responsive and very happy to contribute to consultation in regards to how they would like to see improvements made to the streetscape, which is very timely, knowing that we're having more and more attendance by people who are using the Omeo bike trails. There's been a lot of good positive feedback in regards to that, and a lot of appreciation that that's moving forward, and we're looking forward to the instalments of further tracks being made. Our business is in a positive light up here in the high country, and that's my report.
Councillor Buckley, thank you. Have you had a ride on the tracks yet?
To be honest, I haven't had time with all I've got on my plate with the farm and council work and other things, but I look forward to, and I think I will take one of the electric motor,
An e-bike,
bikes.
an e-mountain bike, yep, well worth it.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm amazed at the number of locals who are taking advantage, unlikely mountain bike riders, and it's very great fun to hear about them. Councillor Greeson, do you have a report you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've been to a few things in the past 3 weeks. I enjoy the Federation University La Trobe Valley Authority and Regional Development Victoria collaborative breakfasts. They run them monthly. So this one was called Shifting the Dial on Health, and it featured Dr. Sandro De Mayo, who's the CEO of Vic Health. And if anyone's heard him before, he's an inspirational young man. He's just doing an enormous amount with Vic Health. And Vic Health have become a very significant force in this space. They've got 85 staff, and they've got many, many millions of dollars to spend. He talked about mega trends that are emerging and driven significantly by the COVID pandemic. So 4 of them he mentioned were increased social isolation, the need to address discrimination and racism, increasing food security, 50% being long-term, and the collapsed participation of youth in sport. So they have engaged youth to undertake research and surveys in working with 38 councils around Victoria. They talked about the growth corridors in Melbourne and regional Victoria being exposed to increased marketing of ultra-processed foods. And I must admit, I was driving down Main Street the other day and I was looking at all these fast food places going down Main Street, and the fact that by the time I hit the CBD, I was hungry. And it just, what is it doing to our community? Yep. But anyway, that's enough of that. But DECA is undertaking forest management planning, and they held a session called Closing the Loop, which was basically feeding back to people who'd attended 2 days of their consultation in January. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. I was really pleased to attend the first of the Economic Development Advisory Committee meetings and meet the new committee members. It was an introductory meeting, so no outcomes to report, but it was upbeat, enthusiastic, constructive group of people representing the spectrum of interests in East Gippsland, and they were impressed by the diversity of representation. So I feel really optimistic about the value of their input to council direction in the next 2 years. I attended the Paynesville 10 a.m. Anzac Day ceremony. There were hundreds of people there, probably 400 to 500 people.
Amazing.
It was really wonderful. We had the band, of course, and bagpipes, and then it was closed by Joe Mueller and Martin Richardson from the Paynesville Wine Bar. It was very moving and beautiful ceremony. On Friday, I attended a family violence prevention gathering run by Delk and Uwina Wernalong. And this was a follow-up from last year's event, facilitated by Uncle Shane Charles. And I think what I took away from it is the importance of trauma-informed practice training for health professionals being a priority. And, you know, the ongoing multiple complex and continuous impacts of colonisation that have led to family violence becoming something that happens too often in Aboriginal families where it never was before considered to be part of their culture. After that, I went to the Foundry in the lane off the Bairnsdale Mall, where they had an exhibition of Otto McPherson's work that he completed during his 2 weeks residency on Float, and that was a lovely launch. And, you know, what people see when they're sitting on not a raft, but a boat on the lake for 2 weeks is just wonderful. And after that, the Bairnsdale and District Arts Society Autumn Art Show, opened by our Mayor, which was also a great evening and very popular. And then on Saturday night, I attended the East Gippsland Winter Festival fundraising soiree, which was the official launch of the Winter Festival. And it was held at Rivendell, which is a farm with a grand homestead. It's been turned into an event venue. The owner's Matt O'Donnell from Albert & Co in Lakes and John Marshall. It was an absolutely brilliant event. It was a beautiful evening, fully booked, 200 guests, good gin and beer and wine, full local makers, delicious food, and Adam Bloem, very clearly an excellent auctioneer because he put a huge amount of energy into auctioning.
And sold you something.
And sold me something. 20 items donated by businesses and individuals, which are just wonderful of those people and those organisations. This year's festival will be a full month from the 9th of June to the 9th of July. They raised $14,503 that night, which is just brilliant. So we've got a lot to look forward to this year with that festival. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thanks, Councillor Greason. Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to submit my written report to be included with the minutes, but just wanted to speak very briefly on two of the events that I was involved with, following on from other councillors. Yes, I'd like to say that I was privileged to attend, speak and lay a wreath on behalf of Council at the Dawn Anzac service at Buchan South this year. It was really a beautifully organised and moving event which included participation from 2 of the local primary students and a very strong local focus. They're very aware of their local history with regards to the World Wars. A gunfire breakfast was offered to the 50-plus participants at the entrance to the really lovely Avenue of Honour. So I'd just like to thank the organisers for the opportunity to participate and to represent our council on this important day. Evelyn Schmidt was once again one of the key organisers. And last Saturday, and I know you'll speak about this too, Mayor, I participated in a wonderful demonstration day tour of our glorious Errinundra to Snowy Country, highlighting the multitude of fabulous opportunities for touring, walking, riding and visiting through current and hopefully future ecotourism ventures. It was organised in part by Alini McElroy from Warm Corners Consulting, funded by ERV and supported by Council, including some very helpful officers. East Gippsland Community Foundation and the Emerald Link project were also involved. And it was such a fun day to share with, I don't know, I estimated 30 or so people on buses from Orbost, and at least the same number, probably more, joining us at Bendock. I enjoyed a visit to Jared Rush's Hope Seed Regenerative Farm in Goongra, had enjoyed lunch beautifully catered for by the new operators of the Bendock Hotel.
Right, terrific.
Yes, and a 3.5-hour walk in the priceless and increasingly rare, never been logged old growth forest, to be awed by some massive shining gums, which are many of them are hundreds of years old and perhaps even 400 years old, those trees in there. They're really spectacular. The walk was ably led by members of Parks Victoria and volunteers of the Friends of Errinundra. We're so fortunate to have this country in East Gippsland, and it was such fun to spend the day with some of the people who appreciate and care for it and are so willing to share their extensive knowledge about the place. I believe that which we love and value we will fight hard to protect, and this day served just this purpose for me. Just a couple of things that I'm looking forward to. One is the Sunrise Rotary EV, so Electric Vehicle Expo on the 20th of May, and the other one mentioned by Councillor Greason, the East Gippsland Winter Festival from the 9th of June to the 9th of July. Fabulous program being developed there. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillors, let me share a couple of points of my report, which include meeting with the Ag Sector Advisory Committee subcommittee looking at rates, and they've had great input into our decisions, which we will dwell on today, councillors. I also attended the Anzac Day at Orbost, and there were 250 plus people at the dawn ceremony and at the 11 a.m. ceremony, and it was a great honour to be able to lay a wreath on behalf of council. Among 40 or more wreaths, it was really looking beautiful at that cenotaph there. It was great that our local MP, federal MP Darren Chester, was there. Busy person, but joined us at Orbost and was able to speak so well about the local contribution to the Second World War effort, especially the RAAF. It was really engaging. Councillors, I've been engaged with the CEO and the acting CEO with One Gippsland. That's an important organisation, as you're aware. I'll keep scrolling down. We've met with the regional MAV mayoral group, and there seems to be good consensus on moving forward towards the MAV State Council on the 19th of May. I wanted to congratulate the Lindenow Lions for again hosting the field days. So many of you have mentioned the field days, but the Lions have been running that event since 1986. And I really take my hat off to that organisation and the volunteers for the work they've done. And there's a great deal of data about the number of visitors who came to the Shire tent, 750 plus, 90 flu shots, and a fantastic highlight, I thought, was the grown, caught and made trail, which I really congratulate the staff on engaging young people in a treasure hunt around that event. Well done, everyone, for being there, and especially to the staff who set up, even on the Thursday, and were there across those days, and councillors for those of you who were able to attend. It's really appreciated. Councillors, I wanted to mention a very important and largely quiet and unsung group of people called the Children with Additional Needs Working Group. And they've developed, with support from the Gippsland Community Foundation, input from Shire officers, a sensory kit for children with additional needs, and often neurodiverse children, in emergencies. So if they're evacuated to emergency centres, these places are often chaotic and challenging and distressing at the best of times. And so to be able to have some sensory kits that actually help calm young people in those distressing times is really amazing. And I really congratulate that group of people. Just point out that as well as a whole lot of sensory items in the kit, they also developed what they call a social story. So social stories are able to be read or seen by the children with additional needs or neurodiverse children when they're going somewhere that they are unfamiliar with. And it helps them unpack and be predictive of what they might experience when they get there. And we know neurodiverse children need all of those additional supports. And what a fantastic resource to have and enable our emergency centres to function better. Well done to the council officers who have supported that as well. I want to congratulate the Bairnsdale and District Art Society for their autumn show. 43 years, councillors, they've been running that event. That's pretty impressive. And they've got over 160 artist members. And it was a really great display. Councillor Uri or Greason, did you buy anything last weekend? No, I was tempted. And again, as has been mentioned, the Go Deep in the Wild event, and a huge shout out to the organisers who participated and ran that event. Councillor Uri, that you were there. The day was a build your own adventure, showcasing the developing nature-based tourism experiences in the Errinundra Snowy district of East Gippsland. It was a brilliant day. And Councillor Uri's mentioned lunch at Bendock, the Bendock pub being open, the Rainforest Walk has been rejuvenated, and there's a real sense of opportunity and optimism in the visitor economy and adventure tourism economy around that part of East Gippsland at the moment. So it was just fantastic. A real congratulations to those people who organised it. That's enough from me for the moment, councillors. And again, I just want to acknowledge the work that you do, being out in the community. Being there is just so important, and the community really value it. Let me just navigate my way on. Councillor Buckley.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interject, but it's just remiss of me that I didn't mention the Anzac ceremony that I attended in Omeo.
Yeah, good on you. Thank you.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and the bagpipe playing all the way down the main street with the school children walking down to the event. It was worth mentioning, so
yep,
I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, it's easy to skip over those things when you're busy. There's no doubt about it. And I think everybody who was able to attended an Anzac ceremony. And Councillor Uri, you were out at Buchan South, and what a beautiful and solemn little event there. And that's a beautiful avenue of honour. You're quite right about that. Councillors, we're on to item 5, which is officers' reports. And the first report is, if you navigate to page 11, we're only on page 11, which is a petition construction of stairs at Christmas Street Reserve, Metung. And Ms Weigel, this is in your patch, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, the report before you is a response to a petition that was received by Council at its meeting 3 weeks ago, on the 15th of March, I think it was. And the petition called for a new connecting pathway. This project isn't currently listed in our planning or design or construction programs for 23-24. Whilst the concept appears sound, as with all new projects, it would need quite a bit more work to determine the required scope, feasibility and potential issues before we could commence any construction. The project planning and feasibility assessment requires financial and staff resources. Therefore, projects are prioritised even for this process. Council receives a large number of requests for projects. This project will be considered alongside these other project requests to determine priority. It's not considered prudent at this stage to commit to the project prior to this planning and feasibility work being undertaken. Therefore, based on the petition, the project will be added to our list of projects under investigation. With me this evening is Wayne Richards, Manager of Community Facilities and Open Space, who can respond to any questions of a technical nature. The resolution before you is to write back to the head petitioner, detailing that the project will be considered when allocating resources for planning of capital works in the future. Thank you.
Thanks for that synopsis of that report, Ms Weigel. Councillors, are there any questions of our officers, including Mr Richards, who's online? G'day, Wayne. Councillor Crook.
Thank you. Is there a feeling that this proposal might make it into one of our plans at some stage?
I might hand that over to Mr Richards, who's had a little bit more of an investigation of the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Yeah, the feeling is that we'll investigate actually a number of walking paths and footpath connections in Metung, and this will be included in that investigation.
Excellent, thank you.
Great. It seems very upbeat. Councillor Uri.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Fantastic. That saves me asking if there's any more further questions, councillors. We have a mover, foreshadow, and a seconder, Councillor Greason. Councillor Uri, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I think we always love hearing from our community about things that need doing in the community. We really appreciate this approach to us. However, I'm always supportive of the work that gets done with all these requests to sort them out and to bring them to us in a prioritised manner. So I'm really happy this is going to be looked at further, and I look forward to hearing the outcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Councillor Greason, would you like to speak? Councillors, is the motion opposed? And would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Thanks, councillors, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Acting CEO, it's carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. Item 5.1.2 is a capital works and major projects quarter 3 2022-23.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is a status report, as you've outlined, for the quarter ending at the end of March. It is a companion report to the financial report, which is listed further in the agenda. As the report details, there are now 554 separate projects under management in our capital program, and we're pleased to report that expenditure plus commitments currently at the end of the quarter totaled 61.6 million. That's 107% of the revised forecast and almost 55% of the adopted budget. Of these 254 projects, 45 are now complete, with 177 remaining on track. Only 6 remain on hold for various reasons, including pending decisions from funding bodies on either funding or varying of scope. Projects that were completed during the quarter included the installation of the EV charging points, 8 of our roads to recovery reseal projects, the Metung tennis court upgrade, the works that were undertaken for Mississippi Creek for Scribner's Road, Black Mountain Limestoke Road timber bridge renewal, and the Bills Creek Waiara culvert renewal. The budget has been revised down. In quarter 3 is really the quarter that we look at our budget and determine what the realistic estimate for expenditure this year is and what would be required carrying forward. We now have a budget of 57.2 million that we're estimating to spend this year. There's a detailed list of projects identified in the attachments to this report, which identify the amount of commitment to date. It uses a traffic light system to identify risk. The report also identifies that there were 7 capital works contracts that were awarded under CEO delegation during the quarter. Councillors, there's a recommendation before you, and I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions that you may have around the report. Thank you.
And we have Mr Jagatheswaran online as well, if there's any further questions that you
He's
can't...
waiting for our next report.
Next report.
We would normally have Zoe
welcome,
Delaney
Si.
with us.
Yep.
She is at the local LG Pro, which is the Local Government Pro Management
Fantastic.
Challenge today. So
Fantastic.
we've given her a leave pass.
Councillors, you've got many options to answer any questions, if you have any. Councillor Uri, thank you.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. I thought you said 500 and something projects initially, but it must be me. I must have misheard.
I heard that too, but I think
you?
you meant
Please
254.
no. 254.
254 is enough.
Okay,
So, yeah.
that's fantastic, and I mean that's an enormous number of projects. I note that a number of projects have been completed as you outlined, which is fantastic. So can we expect that number of projects to be reduced as we go on? So this is the third quarter report for this
That's right.
year? Yeah.
Yes, and we're expecting to see that number go up considerably in the next quarter as we see the conclusion of a number of our projects right across the program.
Okay, so we started off with a huge budget in capital works. I thought it was 114, but I might be wrong with that too. Was it something like that?
It was 114.8 million, that's right.
But obviously it's a very difficult thing to deliver such a big project, and there are a lot of headwinds. I note in the report that you list some of the headwinds that have been faced and what council is doing to mitigate those. Another one of those would be to make some projects into multi-year projects, I gather. So, look, I was going to form a question over that, but I don't think I have one. It was just a comment on your report. Thank you very much for that detail. And we look forward to the next projects coming on the list. Thank you,
Councillor.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillors, any further questions? Councillors, I Can't see any, but we've got a technical issue. I know Councillor Buckley's back again. Sorry, we just had a glitch in the system up at this end, Councillor Buckley. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Do we have a motion? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Allen. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Crook. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say that there's a lot happening and continues to happen. Yeah, it's all pretty self-evident from the figures there.
It is. Councillor Allen, thank you. Councillor Crook.
Just to congratulate Fiona and her team. Capital Works projects are a hugely significant element of what the council does. As most people would understand, a lot of this is funded externally by the levels of government and other places. It's a mammoth amount of work. It's a fantastic program and it's a credit to the institution and the organisation.
Councillor Crook. Councillors, is the motion opposed? And or would anybody else like to speak to or against the motion? That being the case, I'd just also like to acknowledge the work of the council officers, but also the community members and the businesses who are actually in the field implementing and doing the work that we are funding. And many community members will see that work out in the community, and it's great. It really is. There's a lot of good things happening as a result of this particular budget. That's where the rubber hits the road, or the concrete hits the road, or the concrete hits the curb, whatever it happens to be. Councillors, thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. Acting CEO, carried unanimously. Let's move down, councillors, to item 5.1.3, I think we're on to, which is contract 2023-1549 Community Facilities Emergency Power Project. Ms Weigel, it's still
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, councillors. As the report outlines, this is to enable us to deliver an emergency power project, which is a Shire-wide project that will seek to benefit fire-impacted communities through the procurement and installation of generators as a backup power source to ensure ongoing emergency power supply is available when mains power supply is disrupted. This need was highlighted in, as we all know, in the 2020 bushfires, where 14 communities were isolated, some of them for many weeks. The tender that we're considering tonight, or you are considering tonight, involves the supply of an installation of 10 generators with supporting product to existing communities across East Gippsland by supporting these communities in their resilience. The details of the tender evaluation are provided in the confidential attachment. Yep. And with me this evening is our Manager of Capital Programs and Plant, Sayaram Jagathasawaran, who can answer any questions of a technical nature. Thank you.
Ms Weigel, thank you. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Buckley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms Weigel, you stated there were 14 communities that were, had isolation problems and issues with power, etc. Yet we're only supplying 10 of those. Can you explain to me the 4 that have missed out and why that is, and will they in the future also be supplied with generators?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor, I might ask my colleague, the General Manager of Place and Community, to answer this question.
Great. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Ms Weigel, and through you, Mayor. The starting point for this one is that the grant source that we were seeking funds for this particular program had a cap of $500,000, and therefore when we stepped through that process, that limited the number of generators which could be provided. We have been working through a program to identify all of the different locations that need a generator or other backup power supply. A number have them already. This 10 adds to it. There are still some more to go. I don't have a full list in front of me of those that are still to go, but certainly the intention is to continue to seek opportunities to fund those additional generators or other backup power supply as appropriate to the location. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor. Through you, I'm just curious. $500,000 is a fairly sizable grant for generators. And we can only supply 10. Is that correct? I'm just a bit sort of surprised how much a generator might cost.
Mayor, through you.
Yeah, go ahead.
And
Mr. McConnell.
Others may wish to comment as well. The generators are significant generators, so they're sized and rated to be able to supply the whole facility, not just one part of it, so they're significant sized generators. And secondly, to make sure we don't lose them, they're also, as part of the package, there's concrete slabs and wire cages to provide security for those generators, which also adds significantly to the cost, but it is actually a really important investment in making sure the generators are there when we need them.
And if I could just add, through you, Mayor, the confidential attachment, which we obviously won't be discussing, and this forum also provides the schedule of rates, which details all the costs associated with the provision of these generators. So, Councillor Buckley, that gives you a good feel for the cost of each of these generators.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Weigel. Thanks for the question, Councillor Buckley.
Just one supplementary question. It can be taken on notice. I'd just like to be able to have the information of which areas are identified to further need assistance for generators, so that I can pursue this at a later date. Thank you.
We'll take that on notice.
Sure, we can take that out of session. Councillors, are there any further questions of this particular item? Councillors, there is, pardon me, a recommendation in front of us. Do I have a mover? Councillor Crook. Councillor Crook. Councillor, just stand by, Councillor Buckley, if you'd like to second it, but Councillor Crook has agreed to move this. Can you just check that is what you're moving? And then when you're comfortable, if you would like to ask to fill in the blanks.
Yes, if I could just have those blanks filled in, please.
You only just need to read out what is your
specifically
recommendation?
for Con 2023-1549.
Yep.
For the contract amount of $442,000, $442,429 exclusive of GST.
Yep. Fine, just we'll ask Vanessa to scroll up and make sure we can see that is what you are moving. Councillor, you're comfortable with that?
Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
Councillor Buckley, can you see that? Is that what you're seconding? Great. Thank you. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, certainly. Obviously, power in remote communities during emergency situations is absolutely critical. The cost of the generators is significant, but I note, as was mentioned by Mr McConnell, if you look in the documentation, the cost of the generators is approximately only half of that for the total cost of installation and associated electrical equipment and what have you at each site. So yes, they are expensive, but they're very, very important. I will say I think it's a shame that the technology isn't quite affordable enough to be using renewables in this particular instance, and I would suggest that in the future, maybe for those communities who have missed out in this round, maybe the technology will be cheap enough, but when we get another grant. So anyway, I have no hesitation in recommending the motion. It's important infrastructure. It's needed for emergency services to keep our communities safe and functional during disasters. So I'm happy to see it moved.
Thank you. Councillor Crook. Councillor Buckley, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I support Councillor Crook's view on this. However, I think we have unfortunately missed out some of the community, and I hope that in the future we will look to work hard to ensure that we cover the gap that still exists. And having lived through 3 fire events myself over many years, I understand how important power is to the community and in fighting fires as well as protecting property. So I fully support that we're doing something about that. So I support this one.
Councillor Buckley, thank you. Councillors, the motion opposed. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I'd probably just add from my experience, Councillor Crook, I think some of the sites do have a remote area power supply that comprises a battery and some solar. So on some of those sites, this is a backup to provide that additional power as required. So, I'm quite upbeat about that, and those sites that I have seen that are having these are already using renewable energy as well. So this is a bit of an adjunct. And yeah, I think I will commend the officers to continue to pursue the next round of grant funding to finish off the job. Thanks, officers. Thanks, councillors. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks, Acting CEO. Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Let's move on to contract item 5.1.4, which is another contract. And to our junior Rotarians, well done. You've been very patient sitting here. We don't have a crowd anymore, so thanks for being here and good luck with your leadership journey, young leaders. Bye-bye. Councillors, contract 2023-1499, Shaving Point Boat Ramp Reconstruction, Metung, and that's on page 56 of your notes there. And Ms Weigel, take it away. The last of yours, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor, and yes it is. Councillors, through you, Mayor, as the report outlines, with recreational boating being one of the most popular recreational pursuits for our residents and our visitors to the region, it's important that we have the infrastructure to support this pursuit. The Metung Shaving Point Boat Ramp is a popular and well-used boat ramp within Metung. It's reaching the end of its usable life. The Shaving Point precinct has been identified by the Metung community as one of its top 3 priorities for upgrade in the area, leading to the development of a concept plan for both the replacement of the boat ramp and the upgrade of the broader precinct. An opportunity arose for us to seek co-funding for this project by a Victorian Government Better Boating Victoria Structural Maintenance Grant, and we were successful in obtaining over $500,000 through this fund, which we're extremely grateful for. We've therefore worked closely with a community reference group and our Better Boating Victoria partners to design a project which will consist of demolishing the existing concrete double ramp and the 2 timber jetties, replacing the ramp and jetties with a combination of fixed jetties and floating pontoons, and carrying out remediation works to prevent any sand build-up on the ramp. The project is now ready for Council to consider for award, with a confidential tender evaluation panel report also provided as an attachment to the report outlining the details of the tender evaluation process. With me this evening, I again have our Manager of Capital Projects and Plant, Sayaram Jegathasawaran, who can answer any questions of a technical nature. Thank you.
Ms Weigel, thank you, and good evening, Mr Jegathathawan. Councillors, are there any questions regarding the Shaving Point Boat Ramp Reconstruction? Councillor Stone.
Could I just ask, please, what's the time frame for it?
I believe it's been identified for construction or before the popular summer period, and if it can't be constructed before that popular summer period, it will be paused and be implemented after the period to make sure that we're identifying and avoiding that really busy peak period. I believe that's the case, Mr Jegathasawaran?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, that's great. Many thanks.
Terrific. Better to have the existing boat ramp rather than none over the peak summer period. Yeah. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Uri.
Thank you. Ms Weigel, you mentioned that there was a project reference group or a little local community group. Is that normal process to have local input into the design of a facility like this?
It is. We try wherever, probably the projects that we don't do it for are technical projects like roads. unless they're new roads, and then it would be around where they go. But sorry, I'm getting distracted. So yes, when we're looking at a infrastructure that has high community use and high community benefit, we try wherever possible to have a community reference group involved in that. As we mentioned, this has come out of some concept planning that was undertaken with the community, and that was guided by our community reference group as well. And then when we were successful in receiving the funding, we also formed a reference group to look at the actual design and configuration.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I certainly recall at Ben River and Sydenham Inlet we had a very vibrant community involved in that, and even at Marlow, I think the Angling Club. And,
we do. And it's great. We get some really good ideas and, you know, some of that real used experience, which is really important when undertaking these sorts of designs.
Yeah, I think we get a better outcome as a result. Yep, terrific. Thanks, Councillor Uri. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillors, there is a recommendation. Let me just scroll down to it. Do we have a motion, councillors? Councillor Crook, happy to move it. Councillor Stowe, happy to second it. Councillor Crook, I'm just going to pop up on the screen and ask if you are happy to populate the gaps with what you wish to move.
Yes, I'd like to populate the gaps at point 2. Accept the tender be submitted by Carter Marine Group Proprietary Limited for Con 2023-1499, Shaving Point Boat Ramp Reconstruction, Metung, for the contract amount of $809,332.14, including GST.
Including GST. Thank you. Just have a look at that and make sure that is what you are happy to move.
Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Stowe, just check that that is what you're happy to second.
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Certainly, just to say that Metung is obviously a key piece of our boating, recreational boating infrastructure. I've only used it myself a couple of times, but it's a fantastic location. The existing infrastructure is a bit tired and could do with a revamp, so it's fantastic that we now have that opportunity through Better Boating Victoria. So I commend the motion.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Crook. Councillor Stowe?
Yeah, look, a couple of words on it. It's good to see boat ramps in the Shire being upgraded, and Conran Lakes entrance and now spring to mind, and that's fantastic. I think we're if I'm not mistaken, the second most popular boating area in Victoria behind Port Phillip Bay. So it's good to see some money being spent by the State Boating Council and the Victorian Government in our area. So I'm a regular user down there. It does need upgrading, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that at some stage we can actually fix up the parking down there as well.
Good aspiration. Thank you. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I'm always proud to note that we have nearly... Councillor Buckley, sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
Look, I'm in support of the motion, and I also, because I concur with Councillor Stowe, so important to have boating infrastructure, and unfortunately we haven't got any of it up out in the high country. I'd like to see the Dartmouth Dam provided with a boat ramp at some stage, and I just foreshadow that I might even put a motion towards something like that in the future. But good on Metung, and I look forward to using that facility.
Good on you. Well done for never missing an opportunity. Well, councillors, would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I'd just like to remind everybody and all those who are listening, Ms Weigel, we have something like 25 boat ramps. Port Phillip Bay has 29. We have nearly as many boat ramps in our shire as the 6 or 7 shires that manage the boat ramps around Port Phillip Bay.
And we're
it's
a lot bigger area than Port Phillip Bay.
Absolutely. So it's another one of those reminders of the complexities of this shire. So it's terrific to have this particular boat ramp renovated. That's the word I'm looking for. Councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously. Acting CEO. Ms Weigel, thank you for your section onto business excellence. And Ms Elling, so we are Acting General Manager, so we are onto your item 5.2.1, which is to advertise the draft Council Budget 23-24.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and through you. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your approval to advertise the draft budget for the next financial year, 2023 to 24, which you'll find at attachment 1, for community feedback until the 31st of May 2023, after which it is proposed that Council consider the adoption of the annual budget at the Council meeting on the 27th of June 2023. The salient points of the report are: the draft budget is developed to ensure the organisation is appropriately resourced to deliver the works, services and initiatives set out in the Council plan that spans 2021 to 25. Key aspects of the budget are: the Minister for Local Government has set the rate cap at 3.5% for this coming financial year. Council is proposing that the total revenue from general rates and municipal charge will increase by 3.5% in line with that rate cap. It's proposed that the estimated change in revenue from rates and the municipal charge from the current financial year to the next year, 2023-24, for the 3 classes of properties are increased by 4.12% for residential properties, 2.46% for commercial industrial properties, and 0.18% for farming properties. The budget proposes that the differential rates for the farm and commercial industrial classes remain the same as the adopted for the current financial year, being farm class to be set at 80% for the general rate, and for commercial industrial class to be set at 140% of the general rate. It is proposed that there is a waste levy of $51 that will be applied to each rate assessment in the same manner as the municipal charge. With the significant increase in imposed costs from the Victorian Government's Environmental Protection Authority for landfill levy fees and additional waste compliance costs, the budget proposes that these additional costs be recovered through the waste levy, together with increases for both curbside collection and charges and waste user fees. These charges are proposed to be increased at a greater percentage than other user fees and charges, and will be between 7 and 8% on average. The budget also proposes the introduction of a green waste disposal fee of $12 per cubic metre to assist in the offsetting the costs associated with the collection and processing of green waste. Government funding is provided to Council for a number of programs and projects to support ratepayers and the general community to recover from the impacts of the 2019 bushfire event. The budget includes $8.2 million towards these funded programs, and some of the initiatives and projects included in the draft budget are: ratepayers to continue for all eligible, rate waivers, I should say, to continue for all eligible ratepayers whose main dwelling was destroyed in the 2019-20 bushfires for this coming financial year. Continued bushfire recovery support and assistance to the community in the recovery process, and continued council rate rebates for all eligible pensioners of $62.47, I should say, for the coming financial year. The draft budget proposes a significant capital works program of $105.246 million, which has a strong focus on the renewal of East Gippsland's considerable infrastructure, together with several new initiatives. Significant government funding of $49.7 million towards these capital projects is expected. Finally, the draft budget forecasts an operating surplus for the next financial year of $30.082 million, noting that the underlying result, which excludes recurrent capital funding from the operating result, is a deficit of $12.67 million. This is mainly due to the grant-funded expenditure that will be incurred in the next financial year, but the income from that grant, those grants received in the current financial year. You'll find the officer recommendations commence on page 71 of your agenda. With me this evening is Ms Liz Collins, our Manager Finance, to address any questions of a technical nature. Mayor, the report is presented to councillors for your consideration.
Ms Elling, thank you for summarising that report, and good evening, Ms Collins. Good to have you here. Councillors, are there any questions of our officers? Councillor Crook.
The introduction of the new waste, that is a new waste levy? That's my first question. It is a new waste levy?
Pass that question to you, Liz.
Through you, Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. The waste levy was introduced in the current financial year at $37 and proposed in the draft budget to increase to $51. So 22-23 was the first year of the levy.
Thank you. And so that's looking to recoup the costs that our council is incurring for compliance with the Environmental Protection Authority. Does it go above and beyond that, or is it just meet those requirements?
It was, last year when it was introduced, it included the increased compliance cost, and this year again includes a further increase in those compliance costs and levies from the Environment Protection Authority. The whole waste area is really based on a full cost recovery model, and hence why some of the fees have increased so much as well as the levy, which has just picked up the increase Environment Protection levy plus other compliance costs for this year coming.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Crook, thank you. Councillor Greason.
Thank you, Mayor. The proposal is to introduce a green waste disposal fee for the first time. East Gippsland community have enjoyed being able to drop their green waste off for no fee. Would you provide information about what the costs are associated with processing green waste and why it's necessary to recoup? Thank you.
It might go around to Ms Weigel. I think that one tends to land in your remit.
Thank you, councillors. Councillors, whilst we've been offering a free green waste service, the management of green waste is certainly not free. If we look at some of the management costs, the mulching and the processing of this green waste this year is expected to reach as much over $700,000. So that's really a cost that then has to be absorbed into our other fees and charges, because as Ms Collins has already mentioned, we have a zero subsidy arrangement around our fees and charges for waste. So it would see that most of our other fees would have to go up significantly to continue to subsidise that free service. When we look at what's coming through our curbside collection versus what comes through our transfer stations and our landfills, 80% of all green waste material that is processed actually comes through the transfer stations and the landfills rather than through the curbside collection. So it's appropriate that we now start to apply a cost recovery or a user pay fee directly to those that are using the service rather than continue to subsidise it by increasing all other services. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Stowe, then Councillor Buck.
Could I just ask how that fee compares with our neighbouring shires? Are we about average, bit above, bit below?
We're below. So even at the $12 per cubic metre, we're below our near neighbours. Sorry, I don't have the figures in front of me, but they're around that sort of $16 to $20 per cubic metre. In addition to introducing the fee, we're also proposing that we offer a green waste voucher that can be used by householders at any time during the year, much the same as our existing hard waste voucher. And we'd also have sort of an amnesty period in November every year, recognising that that's when a lot of the fire preparedness work is undertaken by property owners. So the month of November would still allow green waste to be brought in at no charge. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Look, it's regrettable that we have to introduce this, but I believe we do have to introduce it, unfortunately, to meet the expenses that are associated with green waste. So I think we've come up with a fair figure.
Councillor Stowe. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. Ms Wiggle, it's true that we're going to look at an in-house processing of organic waste business so that we can process the green waste and therefore make a profit out of it. Is that correct?
So we're certainly looking at in-house processing of green waste and turning that into a usable product. The other alternative for council would be to take it somewhere, which would be at another considerable cost to council. Whether that will fully offset the costs of processing, we're not sure at this stage. We're not far away enough through that process, but certainly there is an opportunity in the future to look at some income generation through the on-sale of the green waste once it becomes a compost material. So certainly there may be in future budgets an opportunity to look at a different fee structure. Thank you.
So would it be fair to say that encouraging disposal of organic waste or trees or whatever it may be would be a positive thing to do instead of charging for it, because people will bring more produce that you can then process and make money from? I'm just wondering, would that be right?
The business case we've looked at set some tonnage that we would be aiming for, which is around that 25,000 tonnes per annum, which really would need to do another business case for what we'd need to do beyond that. So at this stage, Councillor, I don't believe I can answer your question in detail, other than to say that when we're reviewing our costs and our charges every year, we're looking at how we can make sure we're maximising the service to our community and minimising the cost. Thank you.
Yeah, good questions. Interesting project, that one. We look forward to seeing it being taken to scale at some stage in future. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor Uri.
Thank you. A quick one to follow on from the green waste, because there's always a risk, I think, that if we charge a fee for the green waste, as we're proposing in the budget, that people will think, oh, well, I'll just dump it in the bush, and we don't want people to do that. I believe there's going to be a quite a long lead-in period, though, before this is introduced, an education period for our community to tell them, or to suggest ways that they can deal with that waste so it doesn't get dumped in the book. Is that correct, Ms Weigel?
Absolutely, and look, we've already started that, but we wouldn't be introducing this fee until September. The councillors have mentioned in their reports tonight the field days. We had composting workshops as part of our field day exhibition to start to show people how they can use their green waste productively, so they don't have to even bring it in. They can start to use it on their own property. We'll continue to roll out a range of workshops and educational material and support packages, as well as making sure that we're looking at compliance. So where there are people that are potentially doing the wrong thing, and it's a very small proportion of our community, that we've got compliance measures in place to ensure that that is recognised, and there are fees or there are charges associated with that.
Terrific, thank you. May I ask just one more question, please?
Absolutely, of course.
I think it's for you, please, Ms Collins. So for the 23-24 year, it's estimated the underlying operating result will be a deficit of $12.617 million. Would you, I know that some of it is timing. There was a big amount of money that was received at not the wrong time, but at a time which affected that operating result. But also it's been mentioned about grant fund expenditure having an impact on that deficit. Would you just explain a little more what that means, please?
Through you, Mayor, thank you, Councillor Uri, for the question. When the operating surplus includes income that we receive for capital projects, our capital grants primarily, and some other contributions. And when we remove that and say what is the income and result then left to fund our operations, what's the result then? So In terms of the grant-funded operating programs, yes, there's a significant amount of funding that's been received in the current year that the works and services will not be provided until next year with the extension of the ability to use those grants. And that's primarily focused on the recovery and support of the community post the bushfires. There's also this year the Raymond Island ferry slipping, which is a major expense every second year, $850,000 in this 23-24 year budget, together with some other, we'll call them more one-off type expenditures that really account for that $12.6 million. So as you look forward, and particularly when we get to the next item, you'll see where our underlying results then become surpluses for a number of reasons as we go over time. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Thanks for the response there, Liz. That's appreciated. Councillors, are there any further questions of officers? I just have one, Ms Collins. It's about the state government rate rebate. So we're offering a $60 and a bit rate rebate, but I believe the state government also provides a rebate for eligible community members. Do you remember the quantum of that? It's not bad, is it? It's a couple of $100 up to.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There was just an update. There's just been a CPI increase and a new gazettal for the state government eligible pension rebate. From memory reading that yesterday, I think it's gone to $253. There's a cap, 50% of the rates,
Yes.
to a maximum of $253. From memory. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a reminder that we're providing a $60, so it could be $250 plus $60 that an eligible pensioner could receive a rebate for, nearly more than $300. Thanks for that. Councillor, are there any further questions? Councillor Greason.
Thank you, Mayor. It's proposed that this draft budget go out for consultation along with the draft financial plan, 10-year financial plan and 4-year annual plan, assuming that we pass them. Can you talk a little bit for a minute about how people will access them for consultation? Thanks.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Greason. The documents, together with an online submission form, will be on Council's website on Your Say. So there's information on the fact sheet, and there'll be press releases and advising people that they can do that online. There'll also be copies of the documents available at all our customer service centres, along with a manual feedback form as well. So people can provide feedback in writing back to council, or go online and submit it online through to 12 noon on the 31st of May.
Thank you, Liz.
Councillor Greason, thank you. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillors, there is a recommendation there. Do I have a motion? Councillor Allen, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stowe. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I think Alba covered pretty comprehensively most features of the budget. One thing I would like to point out is that our increase is 3.5%, inflation is 7% or above, so that really has an effect on our budgets. So I think people need to understand that there is already a discount in the rate increase just because of inflation. But I would encourage our community to read the draft budget documentation, as Jane pointed out, in conjunction with the council plan, the 10-year financial plan and the 4-year revenue and rating plan, because when you read these together, you provide an overview of the multitude of the works and services and projects that council does deliver, and what is planned for the future in a financially sustainable way. And this can be done online at the council's website, or in writing to the Chief Executive Officer. This is for feedback, and it must be submitted by 12 noon on the Wednesday the 31st of May. For those who need hard copies of the budget documentation and feedback form, you can obtain them at all councillor service centres. And council will consider all that feedback before adopting the final budget at our meeting on the 27th of June. So please, everyone, take that opportunity and provide us with feedback. And in saying that, councillors, I believe that the draft budget 23-24 is responsible, equitable, and in the long-term best interest of the East Gippsland community, and I encourage you to support releasing the draft budget for community feedback. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Allen. Councillor Stowe, you've seconded it. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Just a few words. It's been well covered by the previous speakers, but it's a very good point that we're increasing the income by 3.5% and inflation's at 7%. And also we have to support something like 100 services to the people of the Shire. We have responsibilities to, if I'm not mistaken, 380 staff members. And I think it was said before, we're undertaking 554 projects. So it's a big ask, and I think this budget is fair to everybody. In fact, the farming community this year is going to have an increase on average of less than 1%, in fact less than 0.2 of 1%, which will no doubt be of great benefit to them in view of the fact that their income has reduced somewhat over the last 12 months. The document's taken many months of deliberation by these very wise councillors sitting beside me here, and I think we've come up with quite a good outcome. We've got low borrowings and a very solid balance sheet, so I've no hesitation in recommending it to you.
Councillor Stowe, thank you. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Councillors, would anybody else like to speak to or against the motion? Councillor Buckley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I appreciate that this is a very important part of the process to take the draft budget out to the community, and I fully support that. However, at present, without some amendments, not that I've made my mind up on anything, but I would like to see some changes made to the draft budget. Certainly, I am not in support of charging for green waste. And that's just one of the things that I believe that I can't be supportive of. And the 3.5% increase, regardless of the fact that inflation has gone up to 7%, perhaps that's why we should be reducing the percentage to help people who are suffering from inflation and the pressures of inflation. And that may mean reducing some of our projects to ease the burden on the community. So I support this motion. However, I just wanted to foreshadow my concerns in regards to some of the draft budget measures. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Buckley, thank you. Councillors, would anybody else like to speak for or against the budget? Councillors, I just wanted to thank you for your deliberations and for the officers for the diligent work you've done to try and explore many opportunities and options for the councillors as we teased out this particular draft budget. It always concerns me, and it always has, about charging for green waste. I've been charged up to $50 in metropolitan Melbourne for disposing of green waste for a cubic metre. I know the cost now to us of actually processing that green waste. But I look forward to the FOGO opportunities in future. I think they're a great enterprise opportunity. That's all I wanted to say about this at the moment, councillors. So I'll just put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? Acting CEO, carried unanimously. Councillors, item 5.2.2 is to advertise the draft 10-year financial plan 23-24. Correction, 10-year draft financial plan 23-24 to 32-33, so that's 10 years, and the draft 4-year revenue and rating plan 23-24 to 26-27. Acting General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. And yes, I know we've touched on this so far in the meeting, and the report is seeking Council's approval to advertise the draft 10-year financial plan at Attachment 1 and the draft 4-year revenue and rating plan at Attachment 2. As part of the community consultation process, it's proposed that these documents, as Councillor Greason mentioned earlier, are advertised for community feedback at the same time as the draft budget for the 23-24 year. The salient points of the report are that the Council has updated the 10-year financial plan and the 4-year revenue and rating plan in conjunction with the draft 23-24 budget to ensure financial resources are required to give effect to the Council plan are aligned. The financial plan provides a long-term view of the resources that are expected to be available to Council and the proposed or predicted application and use of those resources. The plan is updated each year to reflect the financial planning for the next 10 years. The 4-year revenue and rating plan provides a medium-term plan for how Council will generate income to deliver on the Council plan and the programs and services and capital work commitments over that 4-year period. Council feedback will be sought until 31 May 2023 in line with the proposed budget, and then with the aim of Council considering the adoption of this revised financial plan and the revenue and rating plan at the Council meeting on the 27th of June 2023. The officer recommendation is on page 202 of your agenda. And with me this evening, as with the previous report, Ms Liz Collins, Manager Finance, is here to address any questions of a technical nature. And the report is presented for your consideration, councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Councillor Uri, go ahead, of course.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms Collins, the basis on which, or the assumptions on which our 10-year financial plan are built are actually given to us. They're dictated. Am I correct in saying that?
Through you, Mayor, Councillor Uri, thank you. No, they are actually ones that we determine ourselves. So none of those are dictated to us at all or provided.
Okay.
So what we do is try and keep them consistent, the income and the expenditure, and so that there is consistency between what might be a CPI versus proposed rate increases. And each year we review those in line with the latest information, whether they be the CPI factors, increasing contractor costs, etc., as those CPIs are applied to our contracts, etc. So, and fees and charges, which we keep consistent with the rate cap increased, the assumptions that are in there, and certainly they're reviewed every year and updated.
Okay, thank you. So the basis on which our 10-year financial plan has been built, I was looking on page 209 in our documents here. So it was based on a 3.5% increase in rates for 3 years and a 4% rise in rates for 7 years. So that's just an estimate of what we'll be looking at in those out years.
Absolutely, and as I'd said, they're reviewed every year, and each year we then look at ensuring that there's consistency between what we might assume for those are in line with expenditure, which the expenditures will be increasing at a greater rate than what the you'll see there than the rate cap assumptions that are made. And once again, we update that each year based on the latest information.
Great. Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillors, are there any further questions of officers? Well, councillors, there is a recommendation there. Let me just navigate my way back to it. Councillors, do I have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move the motion.
Councillor Uri,
Mayor,
thank you.
please.
Do I have a seconder, councillors? Councillor Crook. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, I would, Mayor.
Thank you.
So in accordance with the Local Government Act, Council has updated the 10-year financial plan and the 4-year revenue and rating plan in conjunction with the 2023-24 budget to ensure financial resources required to give effect to the Council plan are aligned. The financial plan provides a long-term view of the resources that are expected to be available to Council and the proposed or predicted application and use of those resources. The plan is updated each year to reflect the financial planning for the next 10 years. So to a lot of people, these documents will be fairly dry, but they're incredibly important to Council. We couldn't function without them. So I just wanted to highlight that point. The 10-year financial plan includes assumptions that are aligned in the 4 years of the budget in the 23-24 budget. The information, including key financial indicators provided in the 10-year financial plan, supports Council's financial stability into the future. The 4-year revenue and rating plan provides a medium-term plan for how Council would generate income to deliver on the Council plan, program, services and capital works commitments over a 4-year period. It defines the revenue and rating envelope within which Council proposes to operate, which is reflected in Council's 10-year financial plan and the budget 23-24 and the 4 years of the budget information included in that document. The revenue and rating plan is a key planning document which identifies each source of revenue, how much income will be raised in each class, and the assumptions for each to find the proposed expenditure included in the 4-year budget. So I would also like to encourage members of the community to read these documents. The 10-year financial plan is a 37-page document. The revenue and rating plan is 27 pages, so perhaps they're a little more readable than the whole budget document, which is 120 pages, but together I think they form a really important picture. And particularly that revenue and rating plan has a lot of really good information about what municipal charge is, explanatory notes about what that is, what rating differentials are, special charge schemes and so on. Councillors, I believe the 10-year financial plan provides a financially sound and sustainable view of Council's expected financial position over the next 10 years. And the 4-year revenue and rating plan provides important information in regard to Council's revenue planning over the next 4 years. And I do encourage you to support releasing the draft documents for community feedback. And just to reiterate that Council will then consider the adoption of the financial plan and revenue and rating plan at the Council meeting on the 27th of June. So just also to note that, as always, these documents are the result of a lot of hard work, a lot of hard internal work in particular by our officers and in all 3 of our directorates. And also as a result of many workshops with councillors. So I would like to particularly thank the finance team and especially Manager Liz Collins for guiding us through this process once again and answering our numerous questions along the way. There have been a lot of questions, and I think that's right and proper too, that we scrutinise these figures and we try and find the very best outcomes for our communities. So I thank you for that, Liz. I look forward to receiving comments from interested community members, and I also urge councillors to support this motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion as a seconder? Councillors, the motion opposed. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? It seems not. Councillor Uri, looks like you have absolutely trumped the evening with what you've said, so thank you. Councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote then. All those in favour? Acting CEO, carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. Item 5.2.3, councillors, is the finance report period ended 31st of March. We're still on your patch there, Acting General Manager Elling.
We are indeed. Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your consideration and adoption of the financial report for the 9-month period to 31 March 2023, which is detailed in the attachments 1 to 7 in your agenda. This report provides an overview of the year-to-date operating and capital expenditure compared to the forecast result and adjustments to the adopted budget for the full year that have been incorporated into the full year forecast result. The key points are that for the full year, the expected operating surplus for the year is $9.383 million, which is $30.704 million less than the adopted budget of $40.087 million. At this point, there is a favourable variance of $4.106 million, which is primarily due to the timing of works and when income has been received. As at 31 March 2023, Council held cash of $126.724 million. This is greater than the year-to-date expectations due to the timing of works and services and the delivery of capital works and landfill rehabilitation program. Regarding that capital works and landfill rehabilitation program, which I clearly can't say very well, the adopted budget for the current financial year was $104.091 million in the capital works and a further $4.461 million in the landfill rehabilitation projects, giving a total of $108.552 million. There were additional projects for the previous financial year that were incomplete at the year end and were carried forward to the current financial year, which added a total of $3.663 million to the adopted budgets for capital and that landfill rehabilitation projects. Actual year-to-date capital and landfill rehabilitation projects expenditure at the end of March 2023 was $27.75 million. The officer recommendations for this report start on page 271 of your agenda, and we have, as you're aware, Ms. Liz Collins, Manager Finance, to address any technical questions that you may have on this report, and it's presented for your consideration, councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Indeed, thank you very much. Councillors, are there any questions of our officers? Councillor Buckley, go ahead, please.
Can I just have a brief explanation in regards to the rehabilitation projects and what the hold-ups were? If we could just have a bit of an idea of why things worked out the way that they have, just so the community can understand.
Ms Michael, your patch.
Thank you,
Great.
Mayor, through
Thanks,
you.
Councillor Buckley.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. It's a combination of the weather events. So the rehabilitation of our landfills are the capping of our landfills. So that's when we discontinue to operate them. There's quite a detailed methodology we have to go through, which is outlined by the EPA to make sure that we're safely capping those landfills. So at present, we've got the capping of the Lakes Entrance landfill, which is underway and is been delayed. There's a combination of reasons. One of them, and one of the main ones, has been the weather, because you can only undertake the capping at certain times and in certain conditions. And as we know, for the last 2 winters, we've had very wet winters and springs, which have delayed some of that. There's also been some additional monitoring of conditions that's been required by the EPA, so that we've had to satisfy those monitoring requirements before we can move on to the next component. So it's really the Lakes Entrance rehabilitation. The other projects are around construction of landfills, which are the landfill at Bairnsdale cell 4 is under construction, and the weather has meant that we have had significant delays in the establishment of that cell, which means we've had to continue the use of the existing cell for longer than anticipated, which means that we're not able to cap and rehabilitate that cell as well. So a combination of those 2 projects mean that there are some requirements to continue to bring that money forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Councillor, are there any further questions? Councillor Greason, thank you.
Liz, I'll ask this question of you, and I know it's all written into this document, but I wouldn't mind you speaking to it about the reduction of the operating surplus by 30.7 million, the reduction of capital grant income by 30.56 million. There's new operating grants coming in 15.5, and I understand perfectly well that, you know, there's grants come in for 1 year's worth of projects, and look, you're going to have to explain it for people, if you wouldn't mind, Liz, just how it works out and how we end up on top.
Thank you, Councillor Greason. And, you know, it's we have to work within the accounting standard requirements, as you all understand. So it becomes a little bit dry and sometimes difficult to understand how we're accounting for some of these grants. With the operating grants, they must be recorded in the year that we receive them, in effect. There's some rules around that. And often we get grants, and particularly operating grants, in advance of when we're going to spend them, but the income goes into 1 year, the expenditure into the next, and so that will distort the result, and so that's why we often look at an average over a number of years. With the capital grants, they're very much tied to milestones, and when we deliver certain components within those capital projects. So the grant monies do sit very much side by side with as we spend. So as we've talked about, and with the capital program, there's $50 odd million that will be carried forward, multi-year projects, and the funding from that, which was included in the current year budget, will now, not be received or brought to account in these statements until next year. So that was a significant reduction in the income in operating. We also had $12.1 million of projects from the 21-22 year where we'd received funding in that year, but the works and services weren't being delivered until this current year. So that meant that that expenditure came forward into the current year, impacting on that as well. And they were the two most significant. The change in the capital grants, yes, there was the increase in operating grants, but that's been offset with additional expenditure. And so these carry forwards, when we get to year end, we'll often find that there's expenditure that we still have to, works we still have to undertake and service delivery, because even these operating projects become multi-year projects, but the income all sits in the year we receive it. So we look at it over a couple of years, and it does become a little bit messy then when you're trying to explain a result variance from what we planned. I don't know how well I explained that, but...
Very well, I think, Liz. Thank you very much.
Councillor Greason, thank you. Councillor, are there any further questions? Councillor Uri.
Just a quick question about the timing of this. This report hasn't been to the Audit and Risk Committee yet, but it will go to the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Uri. Yes, because of the timing of the Audit and Risk Committee, it hasn't gone to the next meeting, which is coming up. It's in the agenda for them to provide any feedback, which will retrospectively flow through to Council.
Ms Collins, I've just got a quick question about the recurrent operating grants of $15.518 million, which I was buoyed to see mentioned here. These are over and above our federal assistance grants?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, so, and obviously there's a significant component or amount of that 15 million that relates to further funding from government towards the recovery and
yeah.
support for the community following the 1920 bushfires. So, yes, over and above our federal assistance grants.
Terrific. Yep. That's well worth crowing about, councillors. Councillors, are there any further questions of our officers? I see none, in which case there is a recommendation there. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Greeson. Do I have a seconder, councillors? Councillor Crook. Councillor Greeson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, just to say that I think I just think we are doing so much as a council. There are so many projects happening and funds coming in at different times and going out and stuff. It's very complex, and I'm very confident and comfortable and pleased that it's being managed so well. Thank you.
Councillor Greeson, thank you. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillors, is the motion opposed, or would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I'm just going to dwell again on that $15 million recurrent grants, because I think it's worth noting that there's been an incredible capital works program, but to actually invest in community through programs is also as valuable, and it's part of that resilience growing. When I look at those recurrent grants and note that they are funding the likes of bushfire recovery and resilience, $7 million, community recovery committees, an additional $1.1 million, future-proofing young people, $500,000, and resourcing grants of $5.3 million. And this is all about investing in our community and our people. And I think that's really fantastic. So again, to the officers who have been able to work their magic in resourcing those grants and making sure that we're at the front of the queue and we're receiving them, I congratulate you, and on behalf of the community, thank you. Councillors, I'll put this motion at the vote. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers. Liz. Councillors, we're on to item 5.2.4, which is the council meeting resolution register. Okay, we're still with you, Acting General Manager Elling.
Indeed. Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Councillors, before you is a report titled Council Meeting Resolution Register, which is seeking council to note the resolution registers provided in attachments 1 and 2 to this report. The reporting of council resolutions is a vital measure of council's performance and provides the information it needs to demonstrate transparency and council's accountability to the community. Council's Chief Executive Officer is responsible for ensuring that the decisions of the council are implemented without undue delay. For the period 1 January 2023 to 31 March 2023, there were 18 open council resolutions, of which 15 have been completed and 3 are in progress as council officers are waiting on an external response, or the matter may be just on hold. There were 5 closed council resolutions, of which 3 have been completed and 2 are in progress as council officers are awaiting external responses. The report also provides an update on any outstanding actions from the previous report tabled on the 7th of February 2023 meeting, of which all have been completed. The report is presented for your consideration, councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Thank you, councillors, in which case there is a recommendation to receive and note this report. Do we have a motion, councillors? Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillor Crook. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Even though there wasn't a lot of discussion about that item, I think it was said in the introduction to it. It's an important report because it illustrates to our community how we are efficiently dealing with the business of council. So I think what this report illustrates is that officers have been very efficient in carrying out or acting on the motions in council meetings, and I hope that they are able to take note of that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well said. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion? Second it. Councillors, is the motion opposed, or would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Thanks, councillors, in which case I'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour? Acting CEO, carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We are now moving on to Mr McConnell's area. And we note Ms Weigel, who declared a conflict of interest, has left the meeting. Councillors, this item is Planning Application 30-2023 P51 Boyd Court, Eagle Point, 3-lot subdivision. And Mr Pringle's with us as well. Good evening. Good to see you in person. Wonderful. Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking approval of a 3-lot subdivision, which in our view is not contentious, but is reported to council, given that one of the relevant officers has declared a conflict of interest, and then in accordance with our planning delegations policy, that's brought to council for consideration for the sake of transparency. The relevant points in relation to the application for council to consider: the land is zoned low-density residential, which allows subdivisions to 2,000 square metres where sewer services are provided, and that's the case. The land has previously been subject to improved 3-lot subdivision, but this was not acted upon, and in time the permit lapsed, and this proposal is very similar to the prior approval. The land is also subject to the Eagle Point Precinct Structure Plan, which outlines preferred lot sizes of 4,000 square metres in this precinct. The proposed lot sizes that would result from this subdivision, 3,839, 4,387 and 7,112, which retains the existing dwellings, and therefore our view is that those lot sizes are consistent with the preferred character of the area. The new vacant lots will rely on a shared driveway access to preserve planted tree rows on the boundary of the site via a carriageway easement. The proposal is generally consistent with the objectives of the planning scheme and the zone and overlay requirements applicable, and in our view is suitable for your approval. The officer's recommendation is to approve the proposal and to issue a planning permit. And as you noted, Robert Pringle's here to assist this evening with any questions of detail.
Indeed, I'll ask councillors if there are any questions. Thank you for that summary, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions of our officers? Councillor Crook.
Thank you. We're sort of looking at two what appear to be battle axe style blocks, long skinny driveways with significant holdings at the end. Am I right in thinking that there would be a shared carriageway to avoid native vegetation removal in the access?
Correct. Through you, Mayor. That's correct. So there is a shared carriageway, and then adjacent to that is a separate area in which the remaining corridor of vegetation along the boundary is retained.
Right, okay. And in terms of retention of unclear whether it's remnant vegetation or planted within the blocks themselves, is that going to be presumed loss and will be subject to offsets, or is there a mechanism by which we can see that retained?
Thanks, Councillor. I'll ask Mr Pringle to assist with that.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. Our understanding is that the vegetation either would require further approval for removal, or most of the vegetation is actually not remnant, not native, and there may be other planning considerations other than the native vegetation provisions, but there's also suitable areas that the vegetation removal could be avoided, and as always, avoid and minimise is our preference for those outcomes, but there's no requirement to consider it as part of this application.
And that's because this is an application for the subdivision, not to construct dwellings and so forth?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, understood.
Councillor Crook, thank you. Councillors, are there any further questions? Mr Pringle, can I just have clarification on that shared carriageway? These are sometimes contentious, and in terms of ownership, management and the like of that over the life of that particular piece of land, How are the conditions drawn up? Can you draw me to that part of the conditions, or how are we going to manage that in future? Because it's not a council road, it's a private road that's shared.
Thank you for the question, Mayor, and through you. There isn't a lot that we impose in relation to shared carriageways, because it is up to the owners to decide how they will manage and enforce that. It's to their mutual benefit, but it does often lead to a point of contention. We have a case that was considered by council that is presented in our regular updates on VCAT matters, which went to the tribunal. There was a bit of a dispute about how a shared carriageway was maintained, and issues of passing traffic and the like. And ultimately, the tribunal is sitting and waiting and not making a determination because they have recognised that it's not within their scope to set any conditions about how those carriageways are upgraded and maintained. Council doesn't really get involved. It's not a carriageway that we benefit from, therefore it's not something that we can impose conditions over as well. So the preferred outcome, because it is a mutual beneficial outcome for these two property owners, is to work together to upkeep and maintain and share costs and resources and be satisfied with the condition of that. We hope that it will continue, but we don't have any ability to compel that to be maintained as it is. There is a proposal in the plan that says that either carriageway could be used by the respective person, and either landowner has mutual access and benefit of the carriageway. It's not one landowner who's relying on the other for that one carriageway on one side. There is a mutual benefit and shared resource in both sides of the property line, effectively. So that may be that they come to an agreement around mowing in that area as well. But again, not for council to get involved in that dispute. And if it were to come back as complaints or whatever, we would say, unfortunately, we have no power to intervene in that case. If they wanted to, they could come back for a change of subdivision where they outline a common property area, and that may be more beneficial in the long run. It gives them more of a standard to discuss. And in other applications where we see common property, council does impose standards so that the design and construction of a shared access is more suited to those outcomes.
Very, very interesting. I'm sure that most of the situations in the Shire, these sort of shared carriageways and common property unite owners, but when it goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong. And we end up being the meat in the sandwich that has to try and solve it. Just an observation, and I'm sure you're very aware of the issues that we've had to deal with. I hope that doesn't happen with this one. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillors, there is a recommendation there. Councillor Crook, Councillor Stowe. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
I see no reason not to approve this application. Seems it will be contribute to significantly sized blocks to the Eagle Point area. It makes mention of retaining neighbourhood character. It's a place where there's demand for housing, so it seems like a good idea.
Councillor Crook, Councillor Stowe.
Yeah, straightforward application.
Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Thanks, councillors. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Acting CEO. Councillors, thanks, Mr. Pringle. We're just about done. I don't believe there's any urgent business, nor confidential business.
No, there's not.
And item 8 on the agenda is the close of meeting, which I am happy to do at 8:08 p.m. Once again, I'd just like to acknowledge the work of councillors in forming your decisions and making those decisions, and to the officers who have been involved in providing us reports, good